Good morning, fellow Hoops fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Last Shot NBA show right here on Little Birdie TV. As always, brought to you by our great friends over there at topsport.com.au. Now, this NBA season is winding down. We may potentially only have one game left. And just as I said prior to the NBA Finals, it's going to be the Warriors in 6. You know, we can go back to the film. I said it. Looks like it's going to happen. But then again, this series, I should say, has been full of surprises. So we don't know what's in store for this upcoming Game 6 on Friday morning. Now, we've got a couple of special guests to break it all down. Our first guy that we're going to welcome, look, I should have had him on this show much, much earlier this season because he's done a fantastic job over there at Basket Monster and Yahoo Sports as the lead fantasy basketball analyst, Mr. Josh Lloyd. Josh, how are you, mate?
Nick, it's good to be on finally.
Yeah, like I said, it's my fault, mate. We should have had you on much, much earlier this season because you've done great work over there analysing the NBA. And of course, we're joined by the magic man himself, Mr. Andrew Parkinson. Parky, good morning.
Good morning. And yes, I had the Warriors in 7. So I think I know where our tips are going to be leaning for Game 6 on Friday.
Yeah, look, it could still possibly go 7, Parky. The way this series has gone, you just don't know. It's been full of twists and turns and ebbs and flows and all that sort of stuff. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But let's talk a little bit about Game 5 yesterday because the Warriors, for the first time this series, I keep saying season, this series, a team has won 2 consecutive games. Warriors take a 3-2 lead with that 104-94 win in San Francisco yesterday. Andrew Wiggins was huge yesterday, 26 points, 13 rebounds. If you'd told me at the start of the season that Andrew Wiggins would be an all-star this season and then help his team win a crucial finals game, I probably would have laughed at you. But here we are. Steph Curry, quiet game yesterday, 16 points, was just 0 from 9 from three-point range. We're going to get into Steph Curry's shooting woes, I guess, a little bit later. But I want to ask you, Josh, first of all, what were your takeaways from that game yesterday?
I think the Wiggins stuff is really important because having someone like that who, let's be fair, like he was never at this level really at any point with Golden State before this season, any point in Minnesota, he wasn't this sort of a player. And even at plenty of points this season, I didn't believe that he deserved that all-star nod. I think that he struggled significantly even after that happened. But in the NBA Finals, he's clearly been their second best player, with Klay Thompson not at his best, Jordan Poole falling off, Draymond Green having his struggles, and to have someone who steps up. And it's not just Wiggins and his improvement. Like, a lot of it is the ecosystem and the way that the offense and the attention is drawn away from him at times. But credit to him, he's really stepped up. And having someone like that to just when your other players are a little bit down, to push into that role, it's been absolutely gigantic for them. And I think that's, you don't expect this from him every game, but to have him come out and do this over these last couple of games especially has been massive for them.
Pikey, what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Josh said about Wiggins. He got that all-star nod back in February, and that was probably a little bit shaky, but that just shows you, I guess, the depth and strength of the Warriors when you think about it. At times, Wiggins is kind of like the fourth option behind, obviously, the Splash Brothers and Poole, who's kind of been touted as the next Splash Brother. So to have an all-star as your fourth option generally is a great luxury, I guess, to have. But without Wiggins' scoring yesterday in Game 5, I think with Steph struggling from the field, then. That really helped. But it's not just the offensive value. It's obviously he's a bigger body. He's sort of playing the old Andre Iguodala role, that sort of bigger body, that sort of rangy sort of three, that wing player. So, but when you look at the series in the Western Conference Finals before this, he was the guy that had to guard Luka the whole time as well. So his contribution has been. It's just been very handy for the Warriors at this time of year. And I think that's why they went to the efforts they did to get him. It was for these moments.
And we spoke about, after that Game 4 performance from Steph, where he went absolutely atomic, we spoke about who was going to step up, in addition to Steph in the following 2 games or however many, we have left in the series. Obviously, Steph had a quiet game. Wiggins stepped up. Now, as far as the Boston Celtics, they're going to have to make some adjustments for this Game 6, especially in that fourth quarter there. They really struggled to sort of generate some offense. And turnovers, once again, I feel like a broken record saying this during this series. Turnovers, again, an issue for the Boston Celtics. They had 18, so their record now when they have 16 or more turnovers is now 0-7, I believe, in these playoffs. Josh, what kind of adjustments do you see Boston making for Game 6?
Well, there's obviously adjustments they need to make in terms of positioning of guys, especially the way Al Horford's played the last couple of games. Like, can you afford him to have games where he struggles? He was a -19 in that game. Rob Williams was a +11. Like, does Williams have the body to actually play longer? Because maybe that's what they need to do. But some of it's not necessarily scheme adjustments. Like, they went to the line 31 times and hit him 68%. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, this is not a team that should be that bad as a free throw shooting team. Like, Jason Tatum missed 4 free throws out of his 6. That's not a normal thing. Jaylen Brown hit 28% of his shots, and some of that can be schemed or coached, but it's just bad execution. So they just need to be better at taking care of the ball. But hitting your freebies, like, that is, you've probably left, 10 points on the board just at the line. And this is, again, they're a very good free throw shooting team. So that sort of stuff is inexcusable. And if you just add those couple of extra free throws on, then we're right there straight away. So while they can do some scheming things and they've got to work out the Horford Williams stuff, just hit the shots, like, just hit them at a higher level, which I think will happen. And we're talking about a completely different game, and not even talking about, Nick, the wild 3-point variance that occurred in this game where they missed their first 20 or 12 or whatever, then hit 8 in a row. It was all over the place. Like, you don't expect that to happen next game. So while we can panic and go, they've lost 2 in a row, there's some weird stuff going on in Game 5.
Oh, there was a hell of weird stuff going on Game 5. It's the first time this series that the Celtics outscored the Warriors in that third period. The Warriors have just owned that third period. So for the Celtics to come out and put in that good third quarter, it was all set up and looking like it was going to be a Celtics victory. And also, if you told them that Steph Curry was going to have 16 points and go 0 for 9 from the 3-point line, and you were going to win the third quarter, you'd probably be putting that down to a blowout win to the Celtics, but they ended up, they lost by 10. But as you said, Josh, those free throws, they're called free throws for a reason. And at this level, those guys, should be hitting higher than that. So they left probably 10 points out there with their free throws. But for the Celtics, they did a lot of things right in this Game 5, and it was set up to be one of those, great away wins again. It was looking like it was going to be their eighth bounce back game in a row just in this postseason, because they're 7-0 after losses just in this postseason. So for the Celtics, in a way, they don't have to change too much. They maybe hit a few more free throws, hit a few more shots, but really going back to TD Garden, they should be still feeling pretty good about themselves.
What do we make of, we spoke a little bit about this just before we went to air. Jason Tatum, struggling a little bit. Andrew Wiggins has done a decent job on him when he's been the primary defender on Tatum. Tatum, had 27 and 10 yesterday, as the Celtics were trying to come back, but I guess they all ran out of steam in that fourth quarter. What have we made about Tatum's play over this series so far?
I think the last couple have been better. Like, he struggled early on with the shot, especially his 2-pointers. They've been way off. Like, his finishing and his mid-range has been off. But I thought the last 2 he's been a little bit better. He's still not having the impact defensively, especially in terms of generating defensive turnovers and defensive plays that he has had in the past. That's been a little bit off, and I think some of that you have to attribute to a couple of long series and the gigantic offensive load that he's had. I'm not sure if that comes back, but some of the shooting and the finishing, I do think that there is still scope for that to improve, and we haven't had a gigantic Jason Tatum game, and maybe that's not in him in this series. I think it still is there, but it is trending, I feel, in the right direction. It's not there all the way yet, but it is moving in the right direction after a sluggish start to the series.
Well, leading into this Game 5, I think Tatum actually Brown was averaging a little bit more than Tatum was, and I think it was I forget what game it was that they lost, but Tatum was a -36, which I think was his worst performance ever in the plus-minus column in any NBA game he's ever played in. So, yeah, he has been sort of up and down. And even though he ended up with 27 and 10, which looks nice on the box score, he wasn't really there at the closeout times. And that's been a criticism of, I guess, their whole team. And because he's their sort of the main scorer, probably their first option. He's the Batman. Then a lot of the blame, or a lot of the focus, I guess, goes on how he's closing out the games, because the Celtics have had a real problem with that at certain times. You look at the last series with the Heat, the same thing, and the Bucks. Both those series went to 7, and the Celtics, well, at least in the Heat series, had their chances to close out. So that's been a concern for the Celtics and for Tatum personally.
Parky, speaking of struggling in this series, let's talk about Steph Curry, because I think he's in a bit of a shooting slump following game 4.
It's the first time he hasn't hit a 3 since something
2018. Yeah. So following game 4, where he had a monster 43-point, 10 rebound performance, he finished game 5 0 from 9 from long range. First game since 2018 without a made 3-pointer. He did have 8 assists though, and just 1 turnover. So he was obviously finding other ways to make his imprint on the game, I guess. Before yesterday's game, Curry had made at least 1 3-pointer in 233 consecutive games. He had also made at least 1 3-pointer in 133 straight playoff games. I was reading that stat, Josh. That is absolutely ridiculous.
It is a ridiculous stat, but we look at him going 0 of 9 yesterday, and that's not ideal. I don't think it's anything to have any concern about. In fact, we go on about it because it is a crazy stat. Wiggins didn't hit a 3. He missed all 6 of his. 0 of 6 is not significantly better than 0 of 9. In fact, they only hit 9 threes as a team and hit them at 23%. And Clay and Jordan Poole hit 8 of those 9 threes. They were bad from beyond the line. Basically, every player apart from Clay and Jordan Poole. That is it. So while it was poor, that doesn't make it a bad game from Steph Curry. I don't think. He was still a team, second best plus 15. Gary Payton was a plus 16. He still creates that. People don't look at, Steph Curry's 0 of 7, so I guess we're not going to guard him anymore, or we're not going to care. He's just having an off night. No team thinks that. So even if he's having a poor shooting night, the fact that he's still creating for others and still opening up everything for everybody else, I don't think there's anything to worry about. Even though it is the end of that sort of streak, I still think it was a pretty solid game despite those threes not going in.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Josh. Though he's a pretty decent decoy.
Exactly.
It's like you say, he could go 0 for 15, and they're still going to be, blitzing him and double teaming him, chasing him off, and he's going to open up the floor for others. So yeah, there's still a value there, and I think I can actually remember the game the last time he didn't hit a 3. I'm pretty sure he went 0 for 10, and I'm pretty sure he went 10 for 15 the next game.
He made in the regular 13. He made 13 the following game.
He made 13. There you go. I remember he had it, and the reason I say. Yeah, it might have been actually. It might have been at it might have been. But the reason I remember that from 4 years ago is that any coaching I've done since that day, whenever I'm coaching kids and you watch them play and they might have a half or a quarter where they're not shooting well, or they go 0 for 6 or they have a bad game, I always mention, hey, even Steph Curry can go 0 for 10, and then he went 13 from 18 or something like that the next game. So that just, I guess, the shooter's mentality is that you don't let the last shot or the last game, affect your mind when it comes to shooting, because Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in the world. He can go 0 for 9. He's still the greatest shooter in the world, and he still should be taking double-digit 3-point attempts next game, no matter what. So, yeah, I think that's a good point to make. In fact, I think he would personally be wrapped with the fact that they still got the victory. If you look at him after the game on the bench, he's got 16 points, 8 assists, and yeah, he was just so happy. He's had big games in the NBA Finals before. He's had, I think, a 48 piece and lost. So yeah, when it comes to Steph Curry in NBA, he's a winner. He knows what it's all about, and it's not like the Celtics aren't going to be chasing him around in Game 6 with in a closeout game. He's probably even a bigger threat now after having a very quiet game.
You noticed that from the beginning of Game 5, they were on him like glue right from the tip. Josh, do you think that sort of the strategy continues into Game 6, where the Celtics look at it like we're going to stick on Steph and make somebody else beat us?
I think the question you ask yourself, and the answer is pretty clear, is like, yeah, do you have more fear in Steph Curry going off or in Andrew Wiggins going off? Like you make a sacrifice there. Like it's obviously Steph, so we want to shut down the guy who could easily just drop 50 in 3 quarters. And if someone else beats us, someone else beats us. I think you have to stick with that because we've seen Steph do it for years and years and years, and we know that like in a 3-minute period he could go out there and hit 5 threes, and game swings and game could be over. So I think you still have to commit to that. And you like if something happens and others end up having games of their life or massive performances that sink you, I don't think that makes the strategy wrong. Because again, if you just say, and now we've got to focus on Wiggins, he's their best player, like, it's a completely wrong way to view it, and you'd end up getting burnt by more, I think, in that scenario.
For what it's worth, they asked Curry about, his previous time not having made a three-pointer, and then he replied, he said, obviously track record says I shoot the ball better the next game. Looking forward to that bounce back. So some ominous words there for the Boston Celtics, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Marcus Smart will still be face guarding him as he was in yesterday's game. He was just clearly just face guarding him like I haven't seen that for a while.
Looking ahead, guys, we're going to take a quick look at Game 6 before we look at the early odds for that game as well. Josh, how do you see this one playing out? Now, Steve Kerr said that he told his guys, "Let's go into Boston. We're going to win this in Boston." They're pretty confident of closing this series out. Obviously, like we mentioned, there's been twists and turns, ebbs and flows. Everything has happened in this series. How do you see Game 6 playing out?
Well, I also, at the beginning of this series, had the Warriors in 7. So in order for me to stick with that, I'm going to think Boston's going to get the advantage. And like I detailed earlier, you don't expect them to shoot 65% on 30 attempts from the free throw line. You don't expect Tatum or Brown in particular to have that poor of a shooting night. And I do think the home court advantage after the travel, the desperation part of it, winning 3 games in a row in a pretty evenly matched finals is going to be tough for the Warriors to pull off. So I do think that Boston will get this one and push it so that I can be right and get Warriors in 7.
All right. I love it. Josh is sticking to his guns there. Parky, how do you see Game 6 playing out?
Yeah, well, before I give my where I'm leaning, I have to qualify as well with Josh. I picked the Warriors in 7 as well, so it's pretty obvious that I'm expecting or wanting the Celtics to win this 6. Plus, we all want a Game 7 anyway. Yeah. I think, as I said earlier, the Celtics are now 7-1 in bounce back games, and I think having this one at home in Game 6, they've won some big Game 6s in the previous 2 series, and I think they're going to be back in Beantown, and I think they're going to force this to a Game 7.
All right, well, let's take a quick look at some of these early odds for Game 6, which will be on Friday morning, our time here. The Boston Celtics are favoured to push this to a Game 7. They're $1.60 favourites. Golden State Warriors, $2.30, $2.39. I'm sorry. The line is at -3.5. The total, Parky, it's probably the lowest one we've had this series, 209.5. And I guess that's for a reason, because I think every game has gone under.
Yes, and it's trending that way too. That was 210.5 yesterday. It was even 211.5 straight after the game. They put the odds up pretty quick nowadays, especially for the NBA finals. But that's this series so far with 5 games. It's averaged 208.2 points. So that's right about the way it is. And I think the way the last 2 games have gone, they've both been under games. 204 points in Game 4 and 198 points in Game 5. So that is sort of trending down there a little bit. So, but the money has been coming for the under there as well. And some sports books actually got the Celtics at a 4-point spread. So, if you're a Celtics fan or you're thinking of having a bit of hard earned on the Celtics, I'd get in now, because I think that spread could even go out to 4, maybe even 4.5, depending how much money comes for them.
Let's take a look at some of these finals MVP odds as well, because this has kind of gone back and forth, but I'm going to assume right now, as soon as we put the odds up on the screen, that Steph Curry is back on top, and there he is. He's $1.25 favorite to win the NBA Finals MVP. Tatum, $4.80. Jaylen Brown's gone out a little bit there, $19. I think he was $7.50 the last time we checked. And the rest of these guys pretty much say it's not worth putting any money on those guys there. Josh, we're going to ask you this as well because we kind of spoke about it on the last show that we did. Even though it's probably looking like the Warriors win now, if they happen to lose, does Steph Curry get this MVP anyway?
I guess that's going to depend. Well, it's going to need big performances from Boston to win the next 2 in a row, and you would assume that means that Jason Tatum has at least one big game, maybe 2 big games. So again, if he ended the series now and said who's been the best player, it's Steph Curry. But if Boston gets up, they're going to need some big performances over game 6 and 7. So it's pretty rare to have a losing player get the finals MVP, even though if it isn't in a game 7. Steph's been great, but has he been head and shoulders and leaps and bounds better than every other player? I guess you could say he's been distinctly better. But again, if those guys have to step up, if Jason Tatum drops 35 and 35 in the next 2 games, then I don't see how you could say, yes, Steph was the MVP, especially when we just have a lean towards, if your team wins it, then the MVP should come from your team. I think that's a pretty natural human instinct to do that. And the guy would just have to be so wildly ahead of everybody else that I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, all us smart basketball minds are in agreement, aren't we, Parky?
Yes, no, and it's interesting too when you look at the championship odds. The Warriors are $1.26, which is basically, the same price as Steph is for the MVP. So there we have it. There'll be the Warriors $1.26, whereas you got Steph at $1.25 to win the NBA MVP. So. The finals MVP, sorry, and Celtics at $3.90. Which, to be honest, that $3.90. If you do think the Celtics are going to win Game 6, you might want to put a little on that $3.90 because you're not going to get that in Game 7. I think the Warriors will obviously be favoured Game 7 at home, but you're not going to get $3.90 for the Celtics. If they win that Game 6. So it's very interesting. And I think if they didn't give it to LeBron back in 2015,
they're not giving it to Steph.
They're probably not going to give it to Steph, but which is a shame because the narrative going into this series was all about Steph's legacy and the fact that does he need to win a Finals MVP, which I thought was a bit silly because his performance in NBA Finals has just been amazing. He's averaging close to 30 points a game, and as we've seen in this series. But it's going to be interesting. I think we've got a few other things to come out on Friday that we'll have a look at with correct score and the series total games, because obviously there can only be 6 or 7 games left, and there's only 3 options in the correct score now. It's either the Warriors in 6 or 7, or it's the Celtics in 7. So we'll have a look at that on Friday's show.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be going into in depth on Friday's show into the odds and betting and everything like that. Look, I'm going to reserve my pick for Game 6 until Friday morning's show. Josh is saying that it's still going to go to Game 7, so he's going Boston in Game 6. Parky?
Yeah, Josh and I think, are on the same page, mate. And I already know what your tip's going to be because you picked the Warriors in 6, mate. So I know. I can channel it. I know what you're thinking. You're going to go with the Celtics Game 6. I can feel it.
I'm reserving my pick until Friday morning, Parky. But I will say this: out of the 5 games so far, I've picked the Warriors to win 4 of them. So maybe that might be a clue as to where I'm leaning for Game 6.
Okay, yeah, that's probably another indication as well. But we'll wait. We're hanging on the edge of our seat.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone is. All right, that's going to be it for this show. I want to thank Josh. Thank you very much, mate. It's been a pleasure chatting hoops with you. And for next season, we're definitely going to have to get you on more than once, I believe.
No worries, Nick. It was good to come on and chat with both of you guys about the NBA. And yeah, absolutely happy to come on anytime that you want me on.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. We're going to take you up on that offer next season for sure. Parky, we're going to catch you again on Friday morning. Get your tips ready.
And shame on you as well. It's 103 shows, and you've just got Josh in for like the 103rd.
Hey, listen,
you couldn't find a spot for him in the previous 103.
That, like I said, that is my fault. That is my fault. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and it's definitely my fault. I accept full responsibility, but I'll make up for it next season. We're going to have Josh on much more regularly. I can promise you that.
Look forward to it. Look forward to Friday, mate.
All right, guys, that's going to be another episode of the Last Shot NBA show here on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. We're going to catch you guys for Game 6 Friday morning.